Welcome, everyone, to another Skeptic and Ranting. Come join us as we go into Conspiracy Theories Are Us. Woohoo! Welcome, everyone. So for tonight's Skeptic and Ranting, I wanted to talk about how it's often said that people who can't find any theory at all will reach for a conspiracy theory. So uncomfortable with not knowing the truth, or worse...
I'm lagging a little bit, guys, if you can hear me.
Yep, I can hear you. Saying the words, I don't know, that we will fill the blank with our own explanation. While this is often harmless, sometimes this can lead to physical harm in the real world. Accepting even a single unproven belief can lead us to accept even more unproven beliefs until we are down a rabbit hole far away from any empirical universe. This mistaken chain of events is understandable because we are pattern-seeking mammals trying to seek out the truth. Furthermore, one of our biggest fears, sometimes even bigger than death itself, is that people are deceiving us. The notion that with intent, someone is trying to lie and manipulate us pines in the back of our heads. Now, that's not to say that conspiracies don't exist. There are bad people out there trying to do bad things. However, the theories that we're going to be talking about tonight hinge on normally two premises. One, that the individual in these sinister deeds are masterminds, often able to control the entire world and their varying governments. And two, that these individuals are idiots who have no ability to cover their tracks, but are able to convince even enemy countries of their views. Doesn't matter if it's a flat earth, Bigfoot existing, 9/11 being an inside job, the New World Order, the Illuminati, the Jews being in control, or the moon landing being fake. All of these conspiracies stem from suspicion of what they would call the elite establishment tricking the public and what most skeptics would call disbelief of mainstream science. So join us as we take a deep dive into Conspiracy Theories Are Us. Thank you.
Ready for me, Amy?
And with that, I'm going to pass it off back to James.
Well, that was a good intro. Yeah, the conspiracy theory is a very interesting topic, and my sister's dog is barking. But yeah, it's a very interesting topic because there's so many conspiracy theories, and I think people find them so interesting because of the sheer number of them, it would almost seem like some of them would have to be true, right? Just like as far-fetched as they are. And, you know, we've definitely seen sometimes that there are kernels of truth in them, even though a lot of the bluster around that tends to be exaggerated and not true. But it feeds into a human desire to be in the know. Conspiracy theories, they grant the people who believe them a sense of power, a sense that they know they have knowledge that other people don't have, that they are, somehow in the know more than your average person. And a lot of times it's based on fallacious information and logical fallacies. These theories, they tend to be very hard to disprove. The people who hold them tend to be very recalcitrant to having them debunked, such as 9/11 conspiracy theories, where every single claim that the 9/11 truth movement has made has been refuted 7 or 8 different ways at least, yet the theories still persist because people who hold them will just modify them to fit the new information. Kind of like how religion works. So, it's just another fallacious set of beliefs that people hold.
All right. I agree with basically everything you just said there, especially with the last part. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sam. You can be as short as long as you like. Just whenever you're ready, just say, and with that, let's go to discussion or, whatever transition you want.
Thank you very much, Amy. And you don't have to worry about that with me. I'm short and right to the point. I hated essays, always. I hate fluff. I'm not a fluffer. Get it? So I'm just writing down different points. I had 2 more points that James actually helped me reach while he was speaking. But I already earlier today going over it, I heard some of what I'm about to say in your speech, Amy, or else I might as well just piggyback off of that. So earlier today I was thinking, okay, well, what are we going to talk about conspiracy wise, and there's so much to pick from, right? That's the thing. There's just so many, so very many, that I like to look deeper. It's actually a problem of mine. I chronically overthink shit, but I love getting down to the detail. And here's why. What exactly does it take to create a conspiracy? How do these mosquitoes spawn, if you will? Right? And they are little blood-sucking mosquitoes, because every time you try and smack one, it may not be that bad, but it could be something like 9/11, inside job, whatever. Another one's biting you, like Pizzagate. Oh my god. So, what makes conspiracies? Because we can get caught in an endless loop talking about each and every single one and just be here forever. I want to get to the meat and bone, the bone marrow, actually, where it all begins. So, without further ado, I was thinking about conspiracies earlier today. And, okay, so what happens? Why would someone take a recent event or historical event and add on to it, to lie to it? All right, and I've got some examples. I like thinking about psychology of things, and I think, okay, let's backtrack. Conspiracies are usually rooted in fear, insecurity, fight or flight response. This makes me uncomfortable. Pit, torch, and pitchforks. Everybody gather around. Burn the witch. So it's fear, right? Fear of what? Usually, it's fear of a changing world around them. I don't like this event, somebody's behind it. I don't like this event, somebody's behind it. I don't like this event, somebody's behind it. It's fear of change. Okay? Now, you probably hear younger people coming up with their own conspiracies, a little far fetched, but much closer to home. It's always about some kind of government or some kind of underground movement. When I talk to older people, their conspiracies are way out there because they're afraid of change. They're used to their life, right? And each and every year, technology, what they grew up with, is being torn away from them at an alarming rate, right? Last couple years, I heard it go, laptops, computers advance every 2 years. I doubt it's that, like probably every 6 months. Okay, so they're used to pumping gas by hand and telegraphs. Meanwhile, the last Western Union MoneyGram order was like 2009. They're afraid of change. Okay, that's why they come up with this stuff. It's fear, insecurity around the changing world. That's what I think it is. We can debate that. It's also, sorry. It's also, what was I? Security. Products of imagination. Paranoia. Usually paranoia. It affects, like Amy said, fear of this new rapid event or change invokes a response that someone's out to get us. Someone's behind this. It can't be. It's like, why me? And like, this can't be happening. It must be this. This gas can't be going up. It must be the Israel when we get our oil from somewhere else. That's usually what. So in conspiracy and fear of change, and then James said, "Why do we still listen to these conspiracies? Is it because they're interesting?" And the answer is yes, because they're products of imagination. Right? People like to imagine. Storytelling. How old is that? So if you go around saying, I heard this on the bus one day, half of the United States gold is buried under Rodney Square, Wilmington, Delaware. Well, that's because we live in Wilmington, Delaware, and this local yokel is probably just proud of his state and wants to give it extra credit. But where do they come up with this stuff? Where? And that's why it's just fun to listen to these ramblings. And then eventually, sometimes people actually believe it. It's like picking up a Jehovah's Witness pamphlet out of irony at the airport. Look at this, harlot, seven-headed beast, and you eventually keep reading it until you actually start believing it. Believe it or not, that happens more often than you think. People can be that gullible. I think I've been going on too long.
Yeah, okay, and so...
I just focus on the points. Yeah, fear of change, insecurity, and imagination peddles their wild conspiracies, gets out of control. I think that's the root of it.
That sounds good. And with that, I'll open it up to open conversation. I'll send the StreamYard link in the chat if anyone wants to join us. And yeah, what do we all think?
Well, I would just start off. I would say that a lot of times the root of these things, I think, begins in human intuition. So you take an event like the assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
I was thinking of that one too, yeah.
It seems very unlikely, very hard to wrap your head around the idea that it could just be one guy with a bolt-action rifle firing at the president from the window of a library. I mean, that just and kill the most powerful person in the world that way. It just seems very unintuitive that could be it.
Not only that, but I think, and
he just made a good point. He said clock tower, right? Bell tower. I've always heard Lee Harvey Oswald was in a grassy knoll.
Knoll.
Well, there was somebody who said he was in the book depository building.
The story's different with everyone. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to prove your point.
Yeah, no.
I want to make one point, and then Ogre, I think, wants to join us. We have someone who just joined the stream. The one point I just wanted to make was that, and I don't know how much, people are motivated by this, but it's just funny. I feel like a simple explanation or something like that is sometimes the boring explanation. And so people don't want boring. They want something. They want it to be like there was this really, massive conspiracy to take him down, because then maybe that's one piece in another puzzle that they have. And, you could have many, many things on that chart, that famous image. And, yeah, exactly. And I'm going to add him in.
You know what? That'll be our new marker. Let's say when we hear a conspiracy, is this at the flowchart stage? Like, do you really think they're serious about this?
If you have pins behind you on a board,
yarn.
Yarn, then we're there. Hello there, Ogre. How are you?
Not too bad. Yeah,
not your swamp?
Yeah, no kidding.
How do you feel about conspiracy theories? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I find them very engaging. I've done lots of videos on conspiracies. Amy, you've talked to me before. I'm a evidentialist, and I don't take into a lot of conspiracies. I'd love to join the conversation, but my kid I'm still fighting my kid to go down. So I'm probably going to be hit or miss for the next half hour while I try to get her to go to bed, but then I'll join in see how long it goes,
That's okay. Completely understand.
So yeah, I'll just chime in where necessary until she finally goes to sleep. So
I'm just laughing at your evidentiality pun because I was just thinking of some old guys and you're like,
Yeah, and also I wanted to say before I let it go, Sam, your volume is really low. I can't really hear Sam at all. So I don't know if that's on her end or what.
Oh shit.
See, I can
Like
hear.
in the stream,
I
she's
heard her.
barely
Yeah.
audible.
Oh, really? Oh, in the actual stream. Because see, on stream, I can hear her from StreamYard, but I can't tell from
Yeah.
the YouTube stream.
Amy, if your volume's 100, Sam's volume is like 40. So
Okay. See, the problem is mine has a gain on it. I'm trying to think if hers. I'm trying to see if you can manually.
My volume's up at 100.
that sounds better. It's probably a mic distance thing.
Okay, mic distance.
Yeah, because you sound a little better that way.
So I don't want to be like this the entire time. Like, welcome to Radio Pop.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, I mean, when I was listening, you know,
Oh, you know, and so Sam, go into that sound. Remember how we had that menu that changed sound?
Shit. Okay.
Right click it and hit properties.
It's like the WoW episode of South Park.
Hey, we're
Drop
just
down
getting
menu.
set up. Well, and then
Sword of
you
a
know.
Thousand Truths. Where is it, bitch? All right. So seriously, where is it?
So you
Oh,
go to
sound
that sound
systems.
options and you go into that thing.
Oh god, it's the OS is going.
So here I have a
Getting
idea.
worse and-
I'm gonna transition to it's been the thing. I'm gonna work with Sam and James. What are your thoughts on conspiracy theories? You were just talking about JFK and lots of other fun stuff.
Well, I mean, the similar. You see a similar thing with other theories too, like the 9/11, for instance. It just seems very unintuitive. The idea that a handful of radical, extremist Islamic individuals could just hijack all these planes and take down some of the most important buildings in the country, and fly a plane into the Pentagon. That seems very far-fetched when you just think about it. So people start to let their mind wander and think, well, maybe it was something else. Maybe it was, of course, in a lot of these theories, we see the government becomes the bad guy. The government's the one who's controlling all this. And part of that is because the government does have an element of secrecy about it. There are things that they keep from the public, so that allows for lots of speculation about all kinds of things they might be keeping from the public. So you see lots of the trends with these things pop up. It starts with unintuitive situations, then it starts with misinformation, then it starts with continues with government secrecy, and then speculation about what they might know, and then they just snowball from there.
Speaking of snowball, can anyone hear me now?
I hear you.
Better?
I'd say that sounds better. Yes.
Yeah, I
So
hear you.
is it still quiet?
No, I'd say you're at Amy's level and James'
Okay,
level.
and if I put it back down, can you still hear me? Check 1 2. Check 1 2.
Yeah, I like it.
It's good.
Good volume.
I can hear.
All right, cool. So I don't look like a
It's
noob.
been fixed. Ta-da.
Okay.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you, Amy. Love you. And damn it, you just touched upon one of you just touched upon a point. The one who was last speaking, not just right now, but the last segment. Who had the last segment? Was it Ogre?
Oh, I was talking about 9/11.
There was I missed it.
And,
There was one point I wanted to touch upon. Suspicion. That's it. Yes. Who mentioned that people don't like being kept in the government?
Oh,
secrets?
because the government does keep secrets from us. So
Right.
that
So
allows speculation about what they could be.
There
keeping.
are conspiracies.
So I'm just going back to basic psychology with that. You touched upon a good point. People don't like being kept in the dark. That's going to breed suspicion, and suspicion is a key element to conspiracies.
And I think most of it stems from that fear. It's always a bigger agencies doing sinister actions. They're lying to us. They're deceiving us. They're hiding something from us. But some of them are just so outlandish that, I had someone on the channel the other day that it started just like creationism in the comments. And then it got to the point where they're like, listen, I'm going to be real with you. It's because the earth is flat. I was like, okay.
What is it floating on a turtle's back?
You know, they never have a model. They never have a model. I asked them.
It's the Discworld, the elephants, and the turtle.
Anyone have any comments on flat Earth?
That
seems to be my biggest one.
A lot of times the people start off believing maybe some of the more reasonable conspiracy theories, and then they just follow that rabbit hole down, and then before you know it, they're saying the Earth is flat, dinosaurs are fake, they're endorsing all the moon landings were fake. Just these more exotic, outlandish theories.
See, Sam, you make that face. A big one we've dealt with in the past few months are dinosaurs real? That's been a hot topic lately.
So what I think
I want you to process that.
What I think that comes from is there's this new era that it's because of the administration for the few years, it's okay to disbelieve something. You can, like the guy on TV, I'm not fuck his orange monster, I'm not gonna say his name. No. He's publicly disbelieving and just outright ignoring expert science, lifelong scientists. It's gotten to the point where it's a culture now, just like hardcore fundamentalist disbelievers, and I think they're just going balls to the wall by digging up old conspiracies that clearly have been proven over time.
And I hate to say it, but there's a tide over was another one flat Earth, and what was the other one you said? Flat Earth, dinosaurs being real.
Exactly. Like, how long have dinosaurs been discovered? How long ago? And then the Earth is total. Oh my God, you can prove it. You've got satellite imagery.
What do you do with someone who says, I don't believe in fossils? And welcome back. But what do you do with someone who says, I don't believe in fossils, therefore you don't have any evidence for dinosaurs?
First, I have to, before I get lost, and I got to step back and, clear my mind. They clearly can't believe this shit. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt.
What do you think?
That would be nice, but I do think some of them do.
And
there are trolls, but some of them really do.
No,
the thing is, I'm not.
Sorry, go Sam. Sorry.
I'm a bad role model because instead of preaching, you can save people, you can teach them to err other ways, make them better people. No, fuck that. Let them be idiots. Let them be assholes. I am not trying to change. I'm too tired to teach anybody. So oh, the Earth is flat. Where are the corners? Tell me. I would just patronize and matronize them. Because again, it's fun to listen. Conspiracies are a product of human imagination. How can you not listen to this shit?
My new favorite.
Funny, I got banned from the Globebusters live stream because I went into there and I was asking him how high the dome is and what it was made of. Shit. Yeah, I got 3 questions out, and then it wouldn't let me post anymore.
First of all,
I said,
Globebusters.
Okay. I want to make a comment on that.
Sounds like it sounds like the Globetrotters and the Ghostbusters together.
But James, do you often find that when you go to these, I find that the creationists and these types, they're the most, I'm politically correct, whatever you want to call it, but they're like 3 seconds from banning us out of the gate. And they'll say because we don't bring any evidence. That's what you'll present 3 lines of evidence and they'll say that's not evidence and you're banned because you don't present evidence. Is that what happened? Is that exactly what happened?
Yeah, pretty much. They don't want to hear it. They don't have answers. They don't want you to ask the questions, and there you go.
And it's easy to not answer questions when you remove everyone who disagrees with you.
I mean, so it's just a circle jerk of stupidity at that point.
And not to and not to harp on theism again and again and again and again and again. They're almost always theists. I don't know why, but there seems to be some correlation when you accept one untrue thing, you accept many untrue things.
I mean, take someone like Nephilim Free or Ken Hoven. I mean, these are people who will you present them with the field of biology. They say bullshit. Geology, bullshit. Cosmology, bullshit. They will hand wave away all of modern science to cling to their Bronze Age book of fables. At that point, you can believe anything.
Yeah,
Because it
I
passes
mean,
responsibility.
I know Amy's familiar with this, but I talk with those guys a lot. I have a master's degree in geophysics, and
Really?
yeah, and the
Yeah,
amount of
Oliver's
time
right.
Definitely Free has educated me on geology is, I mean,
Isn't it amazing how much those classes? And it wasn't until you hit Nephilim free that you're like, I've learned geology.
basically, and I gotta say, I mean, on a person-to-person level, I don't mind him, but once he gets in that creationist lane where he's gonna, it's his job now to tell me about Jesus and the rocks, then it gets kind of hard to talk to. It's like a Jekyll and Hyde thing going on with a lot of these people.
Yeah. Well,
when he talks about the moon being shot with water and finding sea life on the moon.
Where do they get this though? Like,
he thinks there's
Where do they
life
get
on the
this?
moon.
Well, he thinks during the global flood that the tectonic plates broke open and the water there was under such high pressure that it shot out, and that's what caused the craters on the moon, and that there could be, fish that went with the water.
Like
So there could be evidence of life on the moon.
But like a squirt gun shooting the moon,
Basically, yeah, that was his explanation for moon
why?
craters.
But
a
why?
hydro
Like,
cannon.
Because
we
we
have
can look
good
at the moon.
explanations for meteors hitting the
Oh.
moon, and it's just a rock hitting the moon. Why?
But it's the sheer number of craters that there are versus how many impacts we see on a yearly basis. It implies an older moon than 6,000 years. So he's got to come up with a way to have all these craters come that make it look like it's billions of years old.
Once again, it goes to the conspiracy theories. You have to have this big. He then has to, instead of the simple answer like, holy shit, the moon just gets pelted with rocks, he needs to be like, listen, if there's enough geothermic pressure at this time, the rocks will, and then at that point, it came in 6,000 years. It makes sense, right? If you just accept everything here,
Yeah,
and you're like,
But even then, so I've trying to figure out the difference between myths that people propel and actual conspiracies. Usually I notice with a conspiracy, there's somebody behind it plotting against you. Okay,
Well,
so
I would entangle those two together when it comes to talking about the science behind it.
because I'm about
So-
to tie it back into what we were talking about. This ain't a
Yeah, you
tangent.
can believe the myth of the 6,000-year-old Earth, but then there's a conspiracy of scientists that see the evidence and then block it out because precious money or something.
So my question is, if this is a conspiracy, who would be behind the history of the moon, and how would that be someone out to get us?
Sam,
How can they
you
twist
are
it?
a NASA shill. You're just giving NASA shill points right now. You're just the
The fuck is
Glober. You know what the shill is? You're
I'm
just
not on the internet that
you're just paid by NASA to give out globe talking points right now. Okay.
I've been called these things, Amy. I've been called a NASA
Yeah,
shill
no,
in my
baby.
in my videos. I've done lots of videos on the flat Earth and what have you. And yeah, and that's just I got a huge stack of videos in my library, and that's such a common retort once the video gets big enough. Like once your video gets past like a few thousand views, and then bam, 80 downvotes come in, and your comments get filled up with how you're a Jew and a lizard and a shill and all
That
these
was one
other.
of my points. I call it the Jews. It's a common conspiracy.
like a sports
Like an
team.
SNL,
Yeah. But we need people like you, because the flat Earth. I actually think it's hard for a lay person because of our education system. I had to do a deep dive. Now I feel like I have a decent enough background to spew some of their talking points, but it's crazy how much that is popping up now, as what they all told me on 4chan and other websites. They're like, this is a joke. No one takes this seriously. Then it's like, tonight on Modern Day Debate, is the world round? It's like,
Yeah, there's a
All
flat
right.
Earth debate next week coming up. James was saying on the stream tonight.
so it's seeping.
Well,
Yeah,
like you were
seeping.
saying, Amy, that conspiracy castle do where the dinosaurs don't exist, like back-to-back nights. How can you do this twice? I
And-
mean,
Is he 100% real? I think he is mostly real, but He gives me the Alex Jones vibe, but at the same time, it feels like he's trying to give the Alex
He
Jones
looks like
vibe.
Alex Jones. He looks like a bad clone of Alex Jones. It's sad. I feel bad for him.
He has the I can't. It's like almost this talk show host, like this very fluent host, and they're lying and they're going at you, and we're going down, and it's like, does he really feel that passionately about it, or?
Exactly.
I think part of it's his branding. It's a persona that he
branding?
does.
What would be the prize of winning that argument? Okay, let's say you're right. The Earth is flat.
Viewers? Patreon.
What would be the prize?
Tied to creation, I swear, and to tie it always back to religion. There's some people that say the Bible, because there's I forget that specific
That reminds me
passage.
of my points that I
Oh,
forgot.
yeah, the edges of the world held up by whatever.
Yeah, they use that as a quote to say that the world is flat.
Because I noticed,
It's
I think it's a human desire that there has to be something more than this. There has to be something bigger than us. There has to be something more powerful that can save us when we need it, that can protect us, that can, like do things for us and take the blame for us. It's like not wanting to own up to responsibility, just basic avoidance of responsibility, because they can prove their higher power exists with these crazy conspiracies about Earth's formation and the moon and dinosaurs, because they just want to have that parent, that mommy, that daddy. There's always a mother or father figure. Every god is always like a mother or father figure. We humans want a mommy or daddy to run to when they get in trouble. Or they want a mommy or daddy to run to pass the blame when they fuck up. Okay, they don't want to take accountability for their own actions. So there's always got to be some great thing in the sky watching us, or creation of the creator of the world and shit like that. And they just build upon it.
And it also goes back to my original point of if you don't have any theory, I think some people feel much more comfortable with a conspiracy theory, because saying I don't know, even though I think it's the skeptic's mantra,
Oh, that's pride.
is very uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Yeah, the pride.
Well, I think it has to do with, when we look around us, we don't see any evidence for any of the aspects of religion. We just look around and everything looks as if there's no God, as if everything is just working naturally. So that must therefore be the product of a conspiracy to make it look like it is, to make it look like God's not real, because he is real, but people just want to hide him.
In fact, my main conspiracy. Oh no!
If there are people, if there's an organization out there using technology to hide God, they would require a God to hide first.
Yes. Well.
Boom. So who's trying to hide God if we don't even know God exists yet?
Sam, I could tell you who's trying to hide God, because it ties me to what I think is a very big theistic conspiracy. Who's trying to hide God? Satan. Satan going out there and he doing all sorts of mischief, and he tinkering behind here and he tinkering behind there, trying to make you sin. What do you guys? Is Satan making you guys go around and sin? What do you guys think?
I say the verb of shenanigans is shenanigate. You're shenanigating, all right?
Yeah, I don't think Satan's pulling my strings, but I guess technically I couldn't know. So, to my knowledge, I haven't got an email from him recently. I mean,
yeah, he doesn't answer any texts, or doesn't seem
not
to have
my
an
text.
email.
Sorry.
James, no.
James, would you like to admit that Satan talks to you right now?
Oh no, Satan got James. We must fight back. Or was it Yahweh? It might have been Yahweh. You never know. I view him as
he didn't say not today, Satan, not today.
Not today.
Yeah, stuff helps.
You gotta wait a whole new year. You gotta wait for a whole new year. Wait till next year. It's only 3 hours away. It's 11, 12.
I also wanted to talk about them, and just that goes really along with them. Another concept of anthropomorphizing is that a lot of times when bad things happen, we really want to give it to something like this entity. Because of this entity, I wasn't able to succeed, or it was working against me, or we always try and anthropomorphize things.
I'll be right back, guys. I gotta deal with something real quick.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I agree. There's a whole wanting to add more too, right? That's the mud fossil conspiracy in a nutshell, right there, in the mud floods and all that. You guys familiar with those?
Lots of flood stories and conspiracy.
Oh no, not flood stories. Mud flood.
Never. What's
stories.
mud flood?
Oh boy, that's a mud flood is the idea that the world was covered in mud like 200 years ago.
I'm sorry, 200 years ago? As in like the 1800s?
Yes, like in the 1800s to prevent this Atlantis-style civilization called the Tartarians from taking over.
So
I got videos.
Mud?
I got videos on my channel debunking this stuff, and it's people that think and the proof of this is photos of buildings that have like a basement with windows in it.
Okay, so I've told you all we have is photo evidence.
No, there's zero evidence to it. And the Tartarian Empire, they want to ascribe all this Atlantean level, like DC Comics sort of power and grandiose stuff to. And they were just the remnants of the Mongol Empire. But yeah, mud floods and mud fossils are worse. Mud fossils
always sinister.
Are the idea that like the mountains and stuff like that we have are actually the carcasses of dead beings. Like the what's that one? I can't remember the name of it. Oh, the Devil's Tower out west, like Arizona. That's actually an actual tree's trunk that a giant chopped down. It's not rock. It's a tree trunk.
Oh, I'll tell you this because I wanna keep on making Sam's eyebrows raise. But another common thing that we've come across is that there are creationists out there that believe in giants because there are passages within the Bible that talk about either the Nephilim or I'm sure other passages in which they say this says there were 20-foot people. It sounds like Ogre. He comes across this a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just a racist representation by the one who wrote that book of a nation of people who happen to be a head shorter than them, like the Nilotic people of Africa. They're usually the tallest people in the world, but there's short people in the world, there's tall people in the world. So when you read the Bible saying, "Oh, Saul was a head taller than all the rest," that's why they made him king of the Jews. Head and shoulders taller. It could just be a nasty racist representation of somebody that didn't like a warring neighboring country.
Yeah, and then give it 10 years and a foot taller becomes 10 foot taller, becomes on and on, and now they're able to arms like
size
tree trunks or whatever and all that crap.
You know what? Now I'm curious. If I had another laptop, I'd look up how tall was the average Israelite. Where did the story take place? Saul and David and the Giant. Where was it?
Or in the Bible? Where in the Bible?
David. Yeah, where in the Bible?
King David and Goliath.
Yeah, whatever. David and Goliath and the whale and shit like that.
Oh, Goliath. The whale. That's Noah. That's not Noah. Crap.
I was talking about. I'm straying off.
Jonah and the whale is what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. That's a big fish. How dare you say a whale? And
I've been corrected on that before as well. Yes. David and Goliath apparently
much better. Much better. I'm sorry.
But yeah, I mean, as Amy was saying, there's tons of giants in the Bible. There's lands of giants and all these other things. And
it's the same thing as witches. Like if you don't like somebody, you say you write, "Oh, they're a witch." Back in those days, you spread that rumor.
That was the hot conspiracy of the day, literally.
Oh, apparently on the Wikipedia page for David and Goliath, apparently there's different texts that describe them in very different heights. One text says he's only 6'9", The other text says he's 9'9". That's a pretty big difference.
And it's a pretty big difference, but those aren't discrepancies. You just don't understand the context. And okay, I'm gonna add in Manifold. Welcome to our lovely stream.
Hello, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts and feelings on conspiracies?
Oh, that's very long and complicated. I mean, are you talking about specifically conspiracies or
Well, sure.
right-wing Christian
So,
conspiracies?
do you have any thoughts about what we've been talking about? Anything that particularly you find really out there or interesting, or that you come across often?
Yeah, I mean, everything seems to be part of what I come across. Like, talking about like ancient civilizations and people wanting to believe these things. Like, I mean, Joe Rogan's had people like Randall Rouser and Graham Hancock on, promoting, kind of these like
Graham Hancock.
cryptoarchaeology, like all this stuff that's unscientific has already been debunked, and they're trying to really push about, and they're doing it from kind of a secular framework. And I think the thing is with conspiracy theories, they do have a divide, between secular, in my opinion, and religious. And I think all human beings are susceptible to that, whether you're atheist, a Christian, or whether you're on the right or the left. I think conspiracy theories are something that human beings are just psychologically predisposed to.
Yeah, I would agree. In fact, I think it goes to another one of my original points is that we're pattern-seeking mammals who want to know the truth. And I think one of our biggest fears is being deceived. And so, the moment that we feel that something isn't right, we start to drift, or we as in a species, I think we start to tie things together, and then that snowballs.
Well, I think it's
We
the
tend to see
fear of not
agency.
having control over your own life. Like, I think people don't like to admit that there's chaos, that there are things that they don't have control over, and conspiracy theories give people a mechanism of control. They have something to fight against, whether it's even in a completely secular sense, that there's a deep state, a government that's doing all these things. If they're doing something evil, you can fight against it. If the government did 9/11 or killed JFK, you can fight the government. Where if you're Christian, if it's the devil or demons, you can fight against that. There's something you can do, because the worst thing humans beings want to face is the fact that the universe is chaotic and there's no rhyme or reason to a lot of shit that happens, and people just don't want to accept that.
Okay, so I partially said what you said. I made most of the same points right before you got on, and I'm glad that someone else sees that. But you also made some extra points that made me realize something. But to recap, for anyone who missed, first of all, thanks for giving a shout out to psychology. See, when this whole thing started, I was coming at it from a different approach. Instead of just like picking which conspiracies I thought were crazy, I want to know what creates a conspiracy. What does it take? Insecurity, fear of change, to certain things going on around you or certain things happening to you. And she made a point about anthropomorphizing everything. I want to touch back on that to partially answer your question. People need something to relate to. All right, because and what else do we relate to? Any kind of animal that has the same makeup as us, eyes, nose, mouth, 4 legs, stuff like that. We need to personify everything, because we can't understand the idea of inanimate objects doing things out of not their own accord, but just outer forces, outside natural forces. Okay, they can't fathom that, so they need to anthropomorphize everything, give everything a face, a name, a voice, something to shout at, to guide their anger towards. Right.
Well, it's like if you
Right,
walk
because
by
anything that's anthropomorphic implies a purpose, right? There's a reason why something happens if you anthropomorphize it. If something's just a material cause and effect chain, that's something that a lot of people find disturbing, right? Like in the eternal principles of free will, the
Like a
self,
mudslide.
yeah,
They're gonna
yeah,
find because this
So
caused it. Nah.
right. So when you're able to anthropomorphize something, you're able to imply intent and purpose. So whether the purpose is good, evil, the fact that there's a purpose and a reason, I think human beings find that comfort in that.
It's a stress outlet. It's just because if they think we really can't do anything about this, the shit hits the fan. You're living under high stress all the time, cortisol production. But no, and to further build upon having to anthropomorphize everything, make it relatable, give it face, name, voice, yada yada. I answered her earlier about eventually people try and use conspiracies usually to prove God, right? To prove theism. Say it again. How'd you word it, Amy?
I think that there's a correlation between conspiracy theories and theism, because I feel if you accept one untrue belief, that it kind of both gives you permission to accept other untrue beliefs, and it makes you unable to criticize others, because how could you possibly criticize people for not having evidence as your highest standard if you don't have evidence as your highest standard?
Thank you. And my answer to her, Manifold, which proves another one of your points. I think humans just need to make something more than themselves. They tend to make a god, and it's usually a mother or a father figure, and it's usually the creator of the universe, responsible for all the good things, or other gods responsible for all the bad things, because people don't want to be held accountable for their own actions, right? And they don't want to feel powerless. So there's always going to be some higher power that made us, that governs our lives, because they don't want to take accountability for their actions. They could always blame it on the devil, or they can, say that God did it, or whatever name of deity there is. This is their fault, or whenever they're in need, in trouble, in a disaster, an emergency, pray to God, hoping that He'll save us. They're looking for someone to save them. They're looking for a mommy or a daddy figure.
I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of I think leftists or people that don't believe in these things actually move towards are more amiable to things like social programs, because they realize that there is no God to help you. The only person that's going to be able to help you in your time of need are other human beings. So I think that's it's kind of a realization of the fact of the matter. So in terms of the way leftists, in my opinion, react, or even humanists or atheists react to politics, is in a sense that I might be fine right now, but there might be a time in my life when I'm not fine, and I'd like to have certain policies in place that would be able to kind of help me not be in a completely devastating situation, because there isn't a God out there. There isn't something that's going to help me. There isn't a miracle that's going to occur. The only thing that's going to help is the society I live in. So I think it's kind of a realization and a distinction between recognizing that on one hand there is kind of an agent out there that's pulling the strings, and in another sense that there isn't, and the only strings that are being pulled are just the physical world we live in, and the only way we're able to interact with it is in the way we're able to influence it. There isn't a supernatural force that's able to help us out.
I agree. And I'm going to make a point, and then I want to hand it over to James and Ogre. I think it manifests differently in different political circles. I think, it tends to be because of tradition. I think religion tends to be more of the conservative route. And then I think with the liberals sometimes have the anti-vaccination. And so it's almost like we have different battles on different sides sometimes, and they both seem to stem from suspicion and sinister motives, and sometimes it's really just another point I want to make about shitty situations, but I'll make that after James. Ogre, did you guys one after the other? Either you guys want to make a point?
Well, I wanted to say, we see this in our everyday life, even if you're in your house and you walk by a table and you accidentally kick it, now that's your fault. You hit the table didn't do anything, but reflexively you kick the table back as if it attacked you somehow. You know, you're responding to it as if it has agency, as if it has anything. So
To shift the blame and as a stress outlet.
Yeah, I agree.
So they don't feel like it's their fault.
And
so yeah, and they said people don't want to feel helpless. People want to feel like there is something they can do. There's something to fight against. And yeah, it is pretty scary for people to realize that there's nobody up there watching us. There's nobody up there making sure everything goes okay down here. That's all up to us, you know.
And it's easy to do. I feel bad sometimes, like I have to force myself to throw something out because I feel bad that, you know, like I'm throwing the object out because we have this like really intuition that we want to put a character on it, like, but not it doesn't exist. We are anthropomorphizing an object. Ogre, did you have something you wanted to say?
Not really. I think you guys are covering the brunt of the topic well enough. I mean, it's
okay.
Yeah, there's lots of different reasons for these conspiracy theories. Some of them legitimate, some of them not, obviously. But the point is less so. I think it's less productive to, well, not less productive, but it's more fun to just to explain why they're wrong than to try to understand why they're wrong. Maybe that's just me. I mean, Sam, you go on and quantify all the psychology behind it all you want. I just like to tell them they're wrong. So
I agree. And if anyone has a specific conspiracy that they want to talk about,
I had an idea.
Bring it up.
I had an idea on that.
Sure.
I think it would be kind of fun because it's good game to bash, right, and talk about how dumb everyone else is. But I'm wondering if anyone in this room themselves holds to a interesting conspiracy that we could talk about. A little bit of a pro-con going on.
Speaking of game, did you hear the game I proposed for Amy last night?
I did not.
Can you hear me?
What game?
Yeah.
Oh, I said, you know, if Amy would convert to Christianity, then she can go to heaven and have a contest with John Maddox to see who can get the most praises of God off in, say, 1 billion years, and Smokey Saint can keep count.
Oh boy!
That's right.
I mean, I used to
endlessly and forever. What was that?
In terms of conspiracies, I used to be into Alex Jones.
Really?
Well,
I find that fascinating. You can talk about.
Here's the weird thing, right? You come through school, you read like Chomsky, you realize, you know, all the things the government does, like if in terms of international interference and, you know, blowback and all this stuff. And then you get into CERN, like it's kind of a stepping stone. And actually in the 90s, Alex Jones wasn't as much of a lunatic as he is right now. He was into things like conspiracy theories that were naturalistically explicable. Things like JFK conspiracy theories, things like 9/11, things that didn't require a supernatural influence.
Can I interrupt you? One second. Just here's my conspiracy. I don't think Alex Jones is as crazy as he lets on. I think that I feel like didn't he admit in a deposition that he's like, listen, this is entertainment, okay?
I think that was his lawyer. Yeah, that was his lawyer.
Or is that just his lawyer?
Well,
okay.
I think his wife started becoming concerned that he started believing his own, like, you know, people do change. So what Alex Jones believed in the 90s might be actually completely different than what he believes now.
Could be.
So, Manifold, do you ascribe to any current Alex Jones beliefs, or do you still believe?
No. But the point what I was trying to make is that, you know, during that time he was very centrist. He had a lot of people. He had a lot of people from the rap community on that were like, you know, like talking about, you know, the way drugs were brought in by the CIA. You know, in terms of his politics and what he was talking about in the 90s and even the early 2000s is vastly different, because right now Alex Jones is talking about how Obama and Hillary smell like sulfur, and that means that they're demons. So he was able to go from someone that was talking about naturalistic conspiracy theories and things that are more like, even though I don't believe in these things now, back then I did kind of believe in things like JFK and all that stuff. But right now, his grift is so obvious because the right-wing evangelical Christian money is so great that he's moving on to, it's not just about the government, it's about demons and Satan and how God's fighting a war between good and evil. And he was never about that. If you look at what Alex Jones was talking about, he never believed in that shit like 15, 20 years ago. It's something
Really?
new, so it's pretty interesting how that evolves.
I call him Mimi Man.
There were a lot of leftists that listened to Alex Jones back then, but I don't think a lot of leftists listen to him now.
Well, I think with him, I would just say, I think if Alex Jones were to be just another political commentator, I mean, there's tons of those. Why would anyone want to listen to him?
Yeah.
But he's the guy who says batshit crazy things that draws him an audience, because he says just crazy things. People listen just to hear the kooky things that he's going to say next.
Agreed.
Yeah. They're probably not. Probably half of his audience is not true believer. It probably is half true believers and half people like me who I can't help but laugh. And there's a lot of liberals who hate him. I can't hate him because to me he's just Mimi Man.
Imagine
the guy.
Imagine that Alex Jones wasn't as popular as he is nowadays because he wasn't crazy enough. So the crazier you get, the more popular you become.
Right.
It's kind of weird how that is a thing, right? Like, it blows my mind.
It's the evolution of humor.
Yeah.
It's the evolution of humor and, ADD generation or effects of ADD these days. Because, take a look at your new comedy. It's faster and shorter skits. Or just more random material.
It's also very boring to say there are bad people on both sides and things are complicated and we have to understand the situation.
But is it new? Why do so many old people buy into that stuff now? Like, so many old people buy into Fox News, buy into like religious, like Rush. And we're now I think Alex Jones' audience was very young in the 90s, but now it's probably very old because a lot of old people are buying into that kind of conspiracy theory.
It's fear of change. That's all I could think of. Just fear of change.
I mean, I think a lot of people here might have
something.
Parents. Yeah. That buy into that shit.
Yeah. Placing the blame on something because they can't take the world changing around them.
So I'm going to move us along. What do people think about 7-Eleven was a part-time job?
I was actually going to ask about that. So I know, obviously, the steel beams were melted and they came down, clearly, because that's not what I'm getting at. I just want to know, remember when Charlie Sheen asked his brother, I think, did that explosion look controlled to you? And, proof that it was an inside job. I don't think it's a long stretch. I think it was a long stretch for 9/11 to be an inside job, but I just want to know, why did it collapse the way it did? Can someone scientifically explain why it collapsed from the top towers down instead of from wherever the airplane hit down?
If no one else wants to have a go, I can.
Yeah,
I mean, I would just briefly say that the jet fuel, my understanding is the jet fuel heated the beams, and that as steel heats up, it loses most of its strength. So once it doesn't have to melt per se to be very weak, and then it just couldn't support the weight of the buildings on top of it, and then one thing led to another, and the whole thing collapsed.
It became a bomb. It became a plane.
The reason why he mentioned the controlled explosion is because the way they crumbled from the very top floors down, he likened it to floor by floor demolition. When demolition teams destroy a building, they tie bombs to the support beams, not the outside, but the support beams, and it's controlled explosions. The top floor blows up first, ceiling falls in the second. Second floor blows up, ceiling falls in the third. A sandwich pressing down, and that's what it would have looked like from where the planes hit downward, but they didn't hit the very top. They hit somewhere like 3/4 way.
Sam, why do you think demolition people do that?
So to control the area.
Why
so it
do
doesn't
controlled
spill.
demolitions work the way they work, in your opinion? I
Minimize the
know
mess.
you don't believe this, but
I know, but minimize the mess.
The footprint. Yeah,
how does it
minimize the
minimize
footprint and yeah.
how does it minimize the mess?
It's like stacking a bunch of sandwiches on each other instead of spreading all the condiments all over the place.
So what I'm trying to get at here is, again, to my understanding, I don't blow up buildings for a living. That would be too cool. The reason why they destroy the buildings in that stepwise fashion, like you said, is so that gravity doesn't have to do the work of destroying. Gravity does the work of collecting, right? If you have the buildings smash into each other, then it's going to be a lot like what you said. Stuff's going to go sideways. If nothing has to hit anything else, then it's going to fall at free fall, and everything's just going to fall down, right?
Like the commercials when they're like throwing up for a hamburger on slow motion.
Exactly.
Relayers.
Yeah. The slow motion stat. Yeah, exactly. If the floors don't connect with each other, then they're not going to bust out. They're just going to bust down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's true for the controlled demolitions. To my understanding, what happened at 9/11 is a very similar process, but given the immense height of the building, a couple of the floors did give out and stuff started to fall, and it did fall more or less at speed because of the mass, how big the damn building was. It fell more or less at free fall. But think back to 9/11. Think about those clouds of smoke. Think about all the debris going all over New York, right? It spread out, right?
Mm-hmm.
New York was covered in the ash.
So that would prove that a demolition crew didn't do it.
Yes, because a demolition crew actively avoids that.
Well, one of the big factors with 9/11, and the same reason why a lot of people ascribe to JFK conspiracy theories, is a sort of a lack of information. There's actually a term for this where people ascribe to conspiracy theory because they have a certain part of the information, but not all of the information. So that is actually. That is actually a part of some conspiracy theories where you have a small amount of information, but you don't have all the information, so you draw conclusions based on some of the information, but not all of the information. So in terms of what you observe, like, oh wow, it definitely looked like a controlled demolition, but if you look at all the information, it's definitely not a controlled demolition because the buildings actually damaged other buildings. So people ask, what about Building 7? Well, yes, Building 7 was actually damaged by the falling of the other one of the World Trade Centers. It damaged Building 7 catastrophically, so that's why it collapsed. So there's a shorter
little red building, right? There was a corner missing off of a nearby building that was much shorter. I remember that. Well, it was probably that building.
Yeah, the damage that Building 7 suffered by the collapse of I think World Trade Center 2 was so massive, like half the building was shaved off. That
and the subway, the path trains, the tunnels caved in. Why would a demolition crew do that? Destroy part of a transit system, disrupt the city? It's just another evidence.
So you can ask the question: what would it look like if 9/11 was a conspiracy theory? Because what would be the motivation? Okay, the motivation was that because the government wanted to get us into a war. Right, so 9/11 was kind of like a false flag operation. So, okay, so you can ask the question. So, right, but you can ask the question like,
seriously,
but like, what would it look like if that's the case? Well, okay,
I don't want to cut you off. Actually,
in my opinion, flying the planes in the buildings would be enough. Why would you need a controlled demolition to be like after the fact, after the planes already flew into buildings. Why would you need that as well? So you start, if you invoke Occam's razor, it makes the entire conspiracy theory becomes so convoluted and complex that was never necessary to begin with to achieve the goal that the conspiracy theorists claim, that the goal was just to get us into war. There are far easier ways to get us into war. Just crashing the plane to building, that's all you need. You do not need to actually demolish the entire building with a controlled demolition. That's something that's completely ridiculous to even assume that you do.
No,
That's the and look, I totally agree. It wasn't an inside job, but I was really trying to figure out how could it be. What else could be behind it than just getting into war? And the only thing I could come up with, again, not saying I believe this, but the only thing I can come up with is a real estate war. Kind of like how the mafia really wanted that real estate, so they went to illegal measures to get the towers demolished so they can buy that property and build something else. You know, like a
Can I
construction company.
Ogre
But that's the
Joins.
only thing I can think of. That's the only reason I could think of.
So to play devil's advocate to Manifold real quick, an example in the past of a true conspiracy that led to a war was the Gulf of Tonkin incident that directly led in the Vietnam War, wherein it was blamed on the North Vietnamese, the sinking of the USS Maddox, but in fact it was perpetrated by the United States to bring the nation into war with Vietnam and therefore have the Vietnam War. So there is
Like the
precedent.
Maine. Remember the Maine?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So there is precedent for destroying something American to bring the populace into war. That's not unfounded necessarily. Of course, I don't believe that's what happened with 9/11, but there is precedent for it.
And can I just say, I will, to almost counter that, because I think there'd be an easier way to get us into a war. The weird thing that I find is, if you want to get us in there, you wouldn't kill thousands. You wouldn't kill enough to ruin the stock market and ruin our GDP. What you'd want is you'd kill like 2 guys, and then we're going to go into war anyway. But everything that they did hurt us. Like, it hurt us overall. And what people look at is they look at the fact that the administration seems to have taken advantage of something bad. But that doesn't mean that the something bad was the cause of them. So now they're over there and they've already done it. Now they can go to town. But we also have something that we don't often have, is the people who did it, the people who hate us and who disagree with us, also love apparently to say that they love to accomplish it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Amy, you nailed it. It's an extrapolation of conspiracy theory, like who benefits, who had an objective, and who benefits from a certain situation. And people conflate that. If someone benefits from a certain situation, that means they must have caused that situation. In the same way, people think that, drug companies are benefiting from the COVID vaccine. That means they must have caused, the military-industrial complex benefits from wars. That means they cause wars. Like, people just yes, there's yes,
To give you a good example, it would be like assuming that the toilet paper companies cause COVID because they're making money right now. But it's like, no, they're making money because of the bad event.
Contractors benefit from hurricanes, so they cause hurricanes. Right, so that's my problem with the conspiracy theories that try to explain who benefits. Who benefits is very important, but it doesn't mean they cause that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole. I'd say back in the day, I did a series on numerology. Sadly, the videos are lost. But the numerology is the idea that you can find the codes of what happened, like George Bush's grade in 7th grade. He had a 9 in one class, an 11 in the other. Therefore, George Bush would cause 9/11, and all those events are always pointed out after the fact. There's so much about conspiracy that is lacking in its predictive capability. No
In an effort to
conspiracy.
tie. Sorry.
What?
I'm trying to summarize what you're saying. So, in an effort to tie clues that they can't connect, they will further create some new part of the conspiracy and add to the story.
Yeah, kind of more or less. The so much conspiracy is after the fact, where you find pieces that look like they fit, and then claim that that's evidence, but somehow no
Mash
one
them
can ever
in.
do that beforehand. You know, you never have a numerology. All the people that predicts the end of the world are all wrong. You know, they had all this math that predicted the world would end in blankety blank year, and they always fail. Well, that's why conspiracy theorists don't make predictions. They just, ride the views and sell their muscle powder after the fact. And it's crazy. And they make more money than I do.
That they
Hey,
do.
I don't hate the hustlers. You just gotta think like one.
That's my problem.
So is that everyone feel good on everyone feel good about 9/11? I'm gonna move us along to the next.
Well, I would. One thing I wanted
man.
to add.
Yep,
He
absolutely.
said when talking about lack of information, and the thing is with these people is that their beliefs are amorphous. They can absorb new information and integrate it and work around it, like religion. So, for instance, there was a guy who, after 9/11, he wrote an entire book about the Pentagon bombing, and he was trying to prove that it was caused by a truck bomb because he said there was no evidence of any plane hitting the tower. So then the Pentagon came out and they released video footage of surveillance there showing something flying through the air hitting the Pentagon. Now, they didn't admit, okay, maybe it was an airplane. Then they just modified it and said, oh, well, maybe it was a cruise missile. And anyway, they have more tapes than us. Why haven't they shown us all the surveillance footage? As if the Pentagon just wants to let everybody know of their building security and surveillance capabilities. So they're just going to publish everything they have, But more information. They just integrate it and they move on. It doesn't change their views.
They just make an ad hoc, then they can just keep on.
Well, yeah,
Exactly.
The reason why I mentioned that is because a lot of people appeal to things like, how did the terrorists get inside the U.S.? Like, that the CIA must have let the terrorists inside the United States, because how else would they get into the United States? But if you actually read the entire 9/11 Commission report and all the evidence in terms of how the hijackers and the terrorists got into the United States, this is a very long, detailed story about, the failure of certain systems, trial and error. Like, they failed continuously. That the hijackers continuously failed to get into the U.S. and tried in different countries. There's so many documents about how they attempted to get into the U.S. from, Saudi Arabia. They failed. They went to Europe. They failed. They went to different countries. They failed. And eventually they got in. And it's such a complex process. And the conspiracy theories don't read all this data, right? Like, they say, how is it possible for, obviously the CIA just let them in because they wanted 9/11 to happen. No, that's not what happened. It's just a comedy of errors. Like, the Saudi Arabia wasn't interested. They didn't care about what previously happened to this person. And you can actually completely explain, because human beings are just human beings, right? We're not some omniscient, we make errors. So people refuse to let governments make errors. Governments make errors all the time, and this is how eventually they made it in.
And a lot of times it's an argument from incredulity. It's because they look at bin Laden with a beard in a cave and they go, well, how could he possibly? And it's like, he's only in that cave because they've been chasing him because of how good he is and how good he's been getting around. He's from a rich family and all this. But, it's like a lack of imagination.
Yeah, I had an entire document on the 9/11 report on how how all the terrorists got into the U.S. and it was just so obvious. Like every step of the way was completely explicable in terms of errors and in terms of ignorance and in terms of like there's no way to know what these people were part of, and eventually they got in because they didn't get in. Like if the CIA was involved, the terrorists would have got in immediately. The fact of the matter is the terrorists tried multiple times to get into the US and eventually they got in. This is not a sign of a conspiracy. It's a sign of eventually finding a weakness in the system.
Yeah, it's trying over and over again. The other thing is they had just never done anything on that scale, and so it was a mixture of them going, really out there and us not being prepared for it. I think everyone on those planes was like, all right, everyone, this is the worst moment of our lives, but calm down. They're going to negotiate, and they want something. They're going to get something out of this, and then
they've seen all the movies. Yeah,
we're Americans. We get there's not going to kill themselves and everybody, and even then, I think. I don't want to, I'm sure there will be more groups that try this, but this was a big. Like you said, they kept on trying and going bigger and bigger until something cracked and the egg finally cracked.
I mean, before 9/11, though, if they had proposed like the kind of increased security measures, people would have been upset. People would have blown it off and said, "Oh, what do we need to do all that crazy stuff for?" Yeah,
it's a police state.
It's like before 9/11, there was Y2K. Remember that? So there's just
another conspiracy.
Body scanners at airports, making people leave their nail clippers and plastic knives. What kind of craziness?
And so I'm going to bring up Tara's question, and then we're going to move on to the next topic. Question regarding scientific conspiracies. What are the consequences of sensationalism and bias in our media regarding scientific studies? Is our current discourse incompetent at solving the issue? Anybody?
I have some words, but I can wait for other people.
Anybody?
If you have words, say your words. Don't say you're going to wait for someone else to.
Yeah, I just don't want to. I don't want to steamroll the conversation by always talking first. So
it sounds good. What's on your mind?
So, as I said, I have a master's in geophysics. I've spent many years doing research in geophysics. And there is a big issue, I would definitely say, with sensationalism in the media. And it's the equivalent of reading the abstract of a scientific paper and assuming you know what's going on in the text. Science is very nuanced. Science requires a lot of background understanding, right? You don't walk into physics class without knowing how to do algebra and geometry first, right? You're going to fail. But that stuff is boring in the media, right? People don't go to the Yale lectures and listen to them for fun. That stuff's boring to the majority of people. So you have non-scientific entities in the media condensing down scientific literature and trying to explain it. And what do you get? Well, you get those sort of, the scientist claims to have cured AIDS. Well, no, he didn't cure AIDS. He just, they did some work. Hopefully in 30 years will lead to some progress on the matter, right? And it's that ebb and flow of trying to make 24-hour news interesting with trying to at least hopefully do something tangibly correct in the science, and the science is always left in the background for the entertainment factor. It's an issue in literally every field of science. It's happened in mine. So.
It's because something saying this is going to be exciting 10 years from now doesn't quite get the eyeballs on the article.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I have a friend of mine that was interviewed by CNN on geomagnetic reversals, the reversal magnetic field. And the interviewer, I think it was Lou Dobbs actually, was asking him about, does this mean all the birds are going to fly into the ground? And the guy's like, what? No, why would you say that? That's stupid. And the the friend of mine is one of the foremost people in the field of geomagnetism, and he didn't have time for Lou Dobbs trying to make a story out of nothing. No, it means in the next 10,000 years we're going to see a reversal. That's the news.
Wait,
you know?
Ogre, I'm glad you're here.
I-
Hold on, I just have to ask. Can you explain how the tides go in and how the tides go? I'm just
Go out.
kidding. Okay, Sam, you can go on.
Tide pods. So I was reading the question over and over again because I didn't want to just go off on one thing I heard or something like that, and it took me a while. But it's what are the consequences of bias in our media, regarding scientific studies, and the consequences is long term. It activates people. It activates certain crowds of people to do certain things. It's persuading society. The consequences of sensationalism as bias is the same thing that's going on right now. Different news channels dividing the country, dividing everyone who's watching. Some channels have their bias and say this. Some channels have their bias and say that. And they just keep pushing people further into little echo chambers until it radicalizes the population, and you have what we have now.
I'd
With
agree
your
with that, too.
bombings and whatnot. Oh my God, the Nashville bombing? Clearly, there's some kind of message. Somebody was trying to send a message. It's an act of terrorism. And
No, the
what were
guy
they
was
activated
white,
by?
not terrorism. He had a mental issue. The guy's white, so it's by definition not terrorism.
Well,
Okay, I'm glad you're being
recent
sarcastic.
bombing, right? Because there was something weird about that because he was blasting a warning. No one was
they
blasting
didn't want
a
to kill someone.
warning. Yeah, it's trying to kill people. So it was weird, and it's almost like he's sending a message, but we don't even know who he's really sending the message to because it wasn't the public.
And
The
that's
people
why they
he was
say
sending the message to heard it loud and
5G.
clear. It was a dog whistle.
the 5G thing.
It might have been that. That's another.
That's what conspiracy drives people to do.
A perfect segue. It wasn't the topic that I wanted to talk about, but anyone have any views on this whole 5G thing?
Again, it's people afraid to change. People afraid to change. The same thing with cell phones and breast cancer. I mean, breast cancer, brain cancer, or any kind
Thank
of
you,
cancer.
Sarah, for that question. But
They
I
said
think
the same
people that don't understand physics and don't realize that 5G means fifth generation and such a low spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum, like such a low frequency that visible light causes more damage to your skin cells than wireless data transfers, right?
Apparently,
So you're
living by power
exposed to the
lines.
sun, right? Like if you're trying to tan yourself, you're causing more damage to your body than being exposed to fucking wireless waves, right? Like this is such low frequency and low power, right? That people don't realize how orders of magnitude lower it is on the electromagnetic spectrum than ionizing radiation is. Like radiation that actually affects your DNA. 5G, the spectrum that 5G is on is non-ionizing radiation. It's not able to actually, affect your DNA. I mean, if people understood science, I wish that was a thing. I wish people would graduate high school with a basic understanding of science.
And I don't know why the transition from 3G to 4, all these people use 3G and 4G, and they're like 5. I mean, this is okay. I was with you on 3G and 4G, but 5G, well, now something has to be done.
Do you guys remember maybe about 10 years ago when the thing was, the conspiracy was the digital TV switch, and that the DTV was going to be mind control, and that you had to have these boxes if you didn't have cable, these converter boxes to convert the digital signal, and that it was government putting cameras in everybody's houses, and people were actually opening these boxes up and planting cameras in there and acting like they found it.
It's a fear of loss of privacy because they feel like the waves are going through my body. They're going to do something to me. The waves.
Can I play devil's advocate with you real quick?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so devil's advocate here. We all know that it's a combination of the intensity of the electromagnetic radiation and the amount of it, right? There's a reason why the dentist wears the lead shield and you don't when you get your teeth scanned. So is it an issue that 5G is strong enough and we use it so often that it can cause damage? What would you say to an argument like that? Like 5G
I would say
threshold.
that if you're close enough to the source, it would heat an element more than 4G because it would be a higher higher amplitude, not higher amplitude, but higher like in terms of the
Frequency,
wave
you mean?
amplitude. Yeah. So it would be more power being delivered because like you need more power to deliver because the wavelength is actually higher, and to penetrate like buildings and like walls and things like that, you need more power to actually penetrate this. So you need more power to be delivered to 5G to actually have the same reception. Right. So yes, it does heat things up more. It will heat up your cell phone more. It'll heat up even your body more. But in terms of the way and your proximity to these the 5G and or anything else would be so minimal, right? It would be like if you're like in certain temperature ranges that were like nominal, is it more dangerous to be in 30 degrees Celsius temperature or 0 degree? Like sure, things are hotter, but is that going to affect your DNA, or is that going to cause cancer? Is that going to cause?
Wouldn't you have to be within like feet of the transmitter to even notice that difference?
Even then, it would be so low. Even then, it would be so low.
It would be
like,
so minimal.
Yeah. Like, of course, like there is a difference. Like, so I don't want to say there's a difference. There's a difference, right? It does create more heat because the increase in energy does create more heat, but it's not ionizing radiation. It's not enough. It's not enough to make a difference. So I think people do blow this thing out of proportion, but they do use real science.
What would be the limit?
Right. Yeah, they are saying that it's different than the previous generation, and that's true. But they're saying that that's enough to cause like a material difference. That's enough to cause cancer. That's enough to cause COVID or all this bullshit. But which is not the case. It's such a small spectrum in the entire spectrum. Like it's not going to cause enough of a difference. It does cause it is a difference. You can't say it's not a difference, but it's not enough of a difference to make a difference. If that makes sense.
So what do you think? What do you think would be the limit? If there's anyone, since you seem to know something about radio waves, what would you think would be how many G? Not even, because G means generation. So you'd have to find out what hertz they're sending it at, or what frequencies, right? What do you think is the limit before it causes cancer of any kind?
Well, the EM spectrum goes from radio to gamma, right? It's all the same thing. It's just the amount of energy that's being transferred. So your AM, FM radio waves and the X-rays when you go to the doctor are the same type of thing. It's just the X-rays hit a lot harder, right? And it's kind of, I'm sure you're aware X-rays are dangerous, right?
Yeah.
You've seen the Hawk, right? Gamma radiation gave them all that, and what have you. So the point to where it's obviously bad is infrared, because that's not infrared, ultraviolet. There we go.
Ultraviolet, like
ultraviolet gives you sunburns.
Right, that's what causes skin cancer, right? And
because
right. So when we're talking about radio waves and microwaves, they're way below the ultraviolet spectrum, right? So in terms of what causes things like skin cancer, like visible, like literally the sun, like going out in daylight causes more damage than 5G.
So light waves cause more damage than sound
Well,
or
it's not
Yes.
necessarily
If you
light wave.
go out on the beach and get a tan, that will cause more damage to your fucking body than just going out in invisible light causes more damage to your skin than.
So, Sam, the way I've explained this before, I used to teach high school science before my current job is as an adjunct professor. But I used to teach high school science, and we'd cover this stuff in physics class. And the way I describe it to my students is all this energy always passes through you, right? If you stand in front of a radio, you can still hear the radio, right? Because the radio energy is going through you to hit the antenna. So the energy is always going through you. It's just how fast is it going through you? Something like a radio goes through you. Each individual like bullet, if you will, goes through you so slowly that your body can heal after each shot. And then as you go higher up the spectrum, the bullets come faster and faster to the point where you can't heal. X-rays, if you get a lot of them, you can't heal fast enough and you get cancer and what have you. So it's about how much energy hits you and how fast your body can deal with it is this question. Exactly as Manifold was saying, once you get to ultraviolet, that's the point where your body has problems dealing with it, which is why you get sunburns. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
So
sorry to cut you off, Manifold. I just wanted to.
The data reception the G's will never be so high enough to actually hurt people.
No, and you'd get a sunburn before you'd get any cancer. So,
Okay, and so I'm gonna move along to vaccinations cause autism. Anybody have any thoughts on this?
They
Seems to
clearly
go across the
conflate.
spectrum.
They conflate inherited disorders with microbes you can catch. They conflate genetics with bacteria.
Yeah, I don't even see the connection, really.
well, the connection comes from that study in the 90s, right? Usually.
Oh,
That's
there
where
was
this all started. You familiar with that study? There was a debunked study. I can look it up real quick from a British scientist in the 90s that supposedly found a correlation between vaccinated children and vaccinated infants and autism in the 5 and 6 year old range.
But the methodology of the study was bad, right?
Exactly, and the study had to eventually be revoked because the guy basically fudged numbers and more or less made up information to push his theory because he wanted the fame, essentially. And that's kind of where this whole concept started. And then Jenna McCarthy, she's attractive and blonde, so therefore I believe her, started proposing it. And then, here we are.
Well, I would say it starts off as something true that some people do have bad reactions to vaccines and some people even die from those reactions. But what they don't tell everybody is that this is all known beforehand, that these random freak things are going to happen. It's just at the end of the day, when you look at how many people are benefiting from the vaccine, if you save 10,000 lives a year, but you have 4 or 5 people who have a severe reaction and die, most people would say that's a pretty good trade-off.
Someone's always going to be allergic.
Right. And yeah, the government does have a program to compensate people so the companies can't get sued, because if all 5 of those people's families went out and sued and got $20 billion and the drug company would be out of business, then the alternative would happen and all those people who benefited from the vaccine would then be dead.
And a vaccine is just the dead virus, correct?
Well, what they
it's
don't like
neutralized.
is the preservatives that are used to keep that virus, like the thimerosal, which is a type of mercury, even though the amount that you're getting in a shot is well below the threshold that would cause any noticeable harm.
Parts per millionth.
Yeah, it's a very small amount of mercury. You need then
Well,
they even went and took those out.
you'd get more mercury from eating a can of tuna than you would
Right.
being
Right.
injected
From
by
a vaccine, yeah.
That's awesome. Scary, but awesome.
Yeah,
But it's
Amy,
true.
I'm-
Like yes, mercury is used as a preservative, and adjuvants are used as boosters of vaccine efficacy, right? So there are things that are used in vaccines that conspiracy theorists latch onto, but it's there. There's no data that these are harmful in any way. That we're exposed to these things in everyday life that are completely benign. It's nothing that we're using that, and especially autism, which is a very complex, developmental, mental kind of. It's so complex things. Something like autism, to say that autism is caused by vaccines it's completely asinine. There's actually no evidence, right? It could be saying that we found evidence for schizophrenia, and that's because you're eating sugar or something. There's something very specific that's causing such a complex mental developmental disorder.
And it's a result of chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
Well, I like the idea. I've read a little bit on the idea that autism could be a future stage of human evolution in progress right now.
Well, yeah, it's because they have a strong part of the brain, but another part suffers for it. That's what I've noticed.
Right, and what would happen is normally natural selection would mitigate out those extreme forms of it, but at some level the brains do process information
mutation.
more efficiently.
That's,
So it could be
I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that theory yet.
I've heard it a couple times in the past year. Yeah, I mean, it's not consensus. It's just a random hypothesis, but I thought it was interesting.
Huh.
You know what?
Amy.
You know what? My imagination ran away with me, and your little theory gave me a brand new conspiracy theory.
Oh,
We could start it. We can start it right now. It's not PC, but we can start it right now. You had me thinking that if autism is the first sign of human evolution in a few thousand years, that would tell me these multicellular, multifunctional organisms are reverting back to cellular behavior and deciding, I'm going to be good at this one thing. I'm going to be good at this one thing. I'm going to be good at this one thing. And if that keeps continuing to where the entire planet is full of people who think like that, really strong in one point, really weak in others, you eventually become a living organism again. Stomachs, livers, kidneys, hearts, lungs, spleens, intestines.
I hate that. I personally hate that analysis, because I think it's the promotion of certain mental illnesses being promoted as kind of a superpower in certain culture,
Well, I wasn't saying a superpower. There are drawbacks.
Things like autism is like a superpower. You build to count things, it's amazing. You have this high mathematical efficacy and efficiency. It's not
scenario presented. It's like Gattaca.
If you've interacted with people that are autistic, you're not fucking all geniuses and mathematical wizards. They actually struggle in day-to-day life. This is why it's considered a mental disorder. And so I wish people wouldn't romanticize mental illness.
I'm not. I'm trying to tie your conspiracy together. I was like, if that theory was true, where it's the next stage of evolution, that is the only way I could see it pass out. Whereas we're reverting in cellular function, just focusing on one specific job each to become a part of a larger organism, like a larger society, kind of like with our jobs, but an advanced level of that. Like Gattaca, everyone's bred or built perfectly for that one job.
Yeah, I think she's just trying to have a little fun with it, more so than promote what you're saying. Amy, I wanted to let you know I threw the Wikipedia link in
All right.
to the debunked autism vaccine theory. I throw the link in the private chat. So,
Gotcha.
but yeah, it's bogus. I agree.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's on both spectrums, and it once again, my theme of the night is its sinister motives. I guess that would be big pharma in that one. Moving along, I'm trying
Take this
to.
moment right here before you step into the next section. I have to
Sure.
go. Gonna go to work. But how late is this running?
We'll probably run for, I don't know, another half hour. It depends on just the atmosphere.
Because I can log back in if my computer works, or my job has good Wi-Fi. I can log back in before you sign out.
Okay, if you can, just go on your email and go in the stream, and I'll just let you right back in.
Yeah, I
And
got
if
the,
not,
I got the
we'll have
link.
many more streams. I'm sure Jay we'll do. We'll have threesomes. It'll be James, you, and I. When we'll have many. Okay.
We'll invite
Okay.
Maddox in on that.
Yes, or we'll have Batman just say "sir" enough times till there's three of him, and we'll just debate three Mr. Batmans.
Sir's the key.
Interesting.
I can only be so excited. Don't
All right.
give me Maddox and
All right.
Batman at the same time.
Oh, that's true.
You're making me want to stay. Stop.
It's okay.
Don't sound like fun. Don't sound like fun for a second. Don't
Or-
sound like fun.
By chance, were you on the Smokey's channel when Mr. Batman was singing that one time?
I was not. I didn't see
Oh,
that
that's
yet.
a famous clip there.
Were you on
Thank
there?
you, Sam.
to many
Sam. I
more
really
times,
enjoyed talking
Sam.
to you,
We'll
Sam.
have a good time.
I hope you're still on when I
Have a
get
good
it to work.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, Sam. Have a good day at work.
And
Thank you.
if you guys want talk, I'm just gonna say goodbye to her, and then we'll go on to more fun.
Amy, you brought up the big pharma. I don't know if we talked about that. I find the conspiracy theory about big pharma really interesting because there's a lot of places like China, Canada, all these places where there's no profit motive in terms of promoting certain drugs, certain medicine. So I found that very I think
hold
the
on, I'll be
conspiracy
right
theory
back.
about big pharma is very unique to the United States. No. I think you're ready to say something. I'm willing to wait for that.
Oh, I think Manifold. I agree with you. A lot of conspiracy theories are very Amerocentric in
It
the
is.
way they deal with stuff.
I think big pharma is uniquely Amerocentric.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's exactly as you said. Not all cultures in the world treat these subjects the same way that we do, but somehow they all are supposed to fall in line because America #1 and whatever crap. So
I mean, it probably comes from a little bit the fact that America is one of the only countries that has for-profit health care. So, I mean, that probably puts a level of trust in all that.
And the point is that it makes no sense to have that conspiracy theory if you realize that, there are other countries that don't have a profit motive in terms of prescribing certain drugs, right? So, I live in Canada, and my doctor doesn't have a profit motive for prescribing certain drugs, right? Like they don't get kickbacks, they don't get anything out of it. So there's no motivative factor. Like people in China don't have a motivative factor to actually enrich drug companies in the Western world. Like it makes no sense. Like if China approves a drug, they're not doing it because they're worried about the profit motive of US drug companies. They're doing it because they think it's efficacious. So, there's a certain efficacy in that drug. So it just blows my mind that, this entire drug company conspiracy theory is completely 100% dependent on the US being the only country that actually develops any type of drugs, which is not true.
Well, we are conspiracy land. It does seem that for whatever reason, the United States loves a good conspiracy theory. Okay,
very true.
and
Well,
so
I would just go say about big pharma before we move on is that I find it interesting. A lot of times people will talk about big pharma trying to suppress alternative medicine and whatnot, and trying to suppress things like that. And I just always find that funny, because when was the last time you can tell me any mainline prescription drug that was rendered obsolete by an herbal or alternative medicine? It never happens. And why do you think the pharmaceutical companies in America can charge the prices that they charge when people could just easily go to a GNC and buy herbal medicine? Why don't they have to compete with natural medicine?
So what do you call alternative medicine that's proven to be efficacious?
Well, I'm talking about natural medicine, not necessarily proven.
Alternative medicine that's proven to be, useful is medicine. Like, there's no such thing as alternative medicine.
If they could prove it, it would just be medicine.
Yeah, it's just medicine.
Well, I'm talking about things like homeopathy and herbal supplements that are not well established as being effective. They're not well established. They're just not established. They're proven to be bullshit. Like, that's the difference. There's no. I mean, some people take them and say they work, but
in my opinion, there's no
anecdotal.
such thing as alternative medicine, because any medicine that's proven to be efficacious is medicine. That's the definition of medicine.
Well, there are things that people claim as medicine that, like homeopathy and things like that just don't work.
Yeah.
Oh, I was hoping you were about to defend homeopathy, so we had a fight going on in here.
No, I'm not going to do that.
No.
I used to love when James Randi when he would walk on stage and take an entire bottle of the homeopathic sleeping pills, and then look, he's like, don't take more than 2 in 24 hours. He's like, well, I'm going to be fine. Yeah, and he's fine. No effects whatsoever.
Yeah, all you have to do is take an aspirin and then something else, and then you can blame the something else.
Yep.
Okay, so...
Hey, Amy, just wondering, how big is this list?
How big is this list? Oh, we have a few, though. There's only a few more big ones.
Okay.
Hey, it's up to you guys. I'm having fun. But how about anyone's thoughts on? Did we do the moon landing?
We didn't cover it specifically. It's been mentioned a few times.
I know we did meteors. Anybody here have any thoughts? It kind of scans into the flat Earth. It's almost like a cyber section because they don't believe in the moon landing.
Well, they don't believe in the moon, so yeah.
Yeah, was it Samuel Kubrick?
Actually, the one nice meme I like about the moon landing is in 1968. Hold on, it was 1968 or 1969? It was 68, right? The moon landing,
69.
69.
Yeah.
So, okay. So it would be actually more difficult to fake the moon landing in 1969 than it would be to actually land on the moon. That's my argument. Like if we're talking about a pragmatic approach to faking the moon landing, it would actually be more difficult than actually landing on the moon. Like if we're talking about CGI and all this shit that would actually entail technology that was 40 years later and all that shit. Like, I think landing on the moon would be far easier than faking it. Well, that would be my argument against the moon landing.
It comes from people who don't understand visual effects. They don't understand how long it took to get the ability to render. How long it takes. It takes sometimes weeks and weeks just to render a single scene, and that's now.
And the Cold
Now.
War, and the entire Cold War, like that, Russians observed our moon landing. Like Russians observed the moon landing. Then they were worried about it. They weren't that insane. Russians weren't that stupid. They, yes, Americans landed on the moon, and the Russians admitted that they knew that happened. Right? If the moon landing was a conspiracy, the first people that would blow the whistle would be the fucking Russians.
Well, yeah, exactly. Is that it's one of my sticking points is that our so-called, enemies or competitors or rivals, whatever you want to call them, seems to agree with us, and that that doesn't often happen when you have all the people
it's
who
mutual. It's
hate us.
mutual. It's mutual. The United States admitted that the first satellite in space was Sputnik, and that the first human in space was Yuri Gagarin, which was Russian. So Americans admitted certain Russian things, like they didn't say, "Oh, the Russians." It was a conspiracy theory. Russians never launched the first satellite in space, or Russians never had the first man in space.
Well,
no, they recognized that yes, they were the first people in space. Yuri Gagarin was the first person in space, and Russia admitted that the first people to land on the moon were America. Like, it's part of the scientific community. It's like we go beyond insanity, right? Like we have actual people admitting that yes, this is true. This is what happened.
Yeah. And it's just, we don't, and I'm going to make this point and then I'll let Tara in, is, we don't run a parade when the Russians did something, but we acknowledge it because there's no point to denying reality. We go, but they did this, but we're going to get someone on there. And both sides, as far as we can tell, have been keeping the right scorecard. Hello, Tara. How are
Welcome.
I'm taking a 10-minute break. I was just eating out my sorrows because I missed the dispensary. But
did you have any thoughts on what we've been talking about? Any conspiracies? Anything on your mind?
Actually, it was like literally the render point because I have a background in film in high school, so I took 2 years of film class. I'm currently going from Adobe Premiere because I hate that I'm in a cuckold relationship with Adobe, and I'm trying to do DaVinci Resolve, and which is free.
Resolve, I like it.
But the problem is that my monkey ass cannot figure out how to do effects and render in this piece of crap. Now I know the answers exist because, I'm not I'm not believing in the conspiracy theory that this is some sort of thing I can never understand. It's just so hard. This is sorry about that, but I was when it comes to actually doing complicated effects that we see in Marvel's Avengers, sometimes those take days.
And you may be using the wrong program. You may need to get into After Effects.
No, I hate Adobe. I'm at a war with Adobe. I'm only at two wars right now: war with omnipotence and war with subscription-based models.
Well, maybe what they did, maybe they came and took George Lucas from the future and transported him back to the past, and he did it.
One of the big conspiracy theories is that Stanley Kubrick, actually filmed the moon landing. So the big thing is, actually, I don't know if anyone here actually understands how 2001 was made, right? So the movie and Stanley Kubrick was a big fan of NASA's exploration to the moon.
Sent him
he was a massive fan, wanted to understand what it would take. So he visited NASA. He actually looked at the moon lander. He took all this stuff that was being developed and implemented into his movie. So this is why the movie has such a realistic description of how people get to the moon, how people land on the moon, is because before we landed on the moon, he actually visited NASA, it's like, hey, how are you developing the moon lander? How are you doing all these things? And he made a movie about it before we were able to actually land on the moon. So he made that movie before we landed on the moon because he actually consulted NASA because they were working on that project. So it's not a conspiracy theory. It's not mysterious of why it looks so accurate. It's because he was actually interested in that at the time. Like, so if you actually look into these things, they don't become so mysterious.
I mean, the crux of it goes back to what I think is like just a sort of misunderstanding of the, I guess you could say, the filmmaking progress. Because I love Kubrick. He's one of my inspirations, especially for like a time that was more technologically limited. And I think that like the core bow that ties all conspiracies together is that like some people are more interested in believing something rather than doing the effort to do research. As a general rule.
That too. And yeah, the conspiracy theorists just flip it around. He went and did research and got the proper lenses that were actually used by NASA, and the conspiracy theorists just turn that around and say no, he was giving NASA the lenses. It's but there's no evidence to that, and yeah, and
so my uncle actually worked at NASA, so that's the reason why, whenever I'm always on here with you and James, that I always talk about space a lot. And unfortunately, he passed away in summer. Wasn't COVID. He was just old.
Aww.
Rest in peace. But if I didn't have that uncle, I would probably not be interested in like the sort of engineering about like spacecraft and like, physics and stuff like that. And whenever I hear specifically the moon landing conspiracy, it's interesting because I have two intersections of knowledge. I'm not the greatest filmmaker, to be honest. Like, I'm gonna end this conversation and I'm gonna like pull out my hair trying to figure out Da Vinci Resolve. But still, like I'm pretty sure that just through the principle of Occam's, there's no good computer you could do to even synthesize that crap. I'm sorry.
One of my certificates of debt is in film. So my background is visual effects. So I love this stuff. I love After Effects and Premiere and Photoshop, and making more films and streams.
Yeah,
Didn't mean to completely cut off the conversation.
Cool. I use DaVinci for all my videos on my channel, but I get the feeling that you are using it at a higher level than I do. Like, I just use it for very basic tracking and like throwing text on a screen. So
I'm trying to do an animated background so that way comic and manga sort of basically I don't get copyright striked by YouTube. So like I'm trying to figure out how to do animated backgrounds.
Always good.
And
gotcha.
And I tried for 6 hours. I gave up yesterday. We'll try again after I write these chapters because like I would rather write because it's easier.
Yeah. There's a really good series on how to use DaVinci on YouTube, unsurprisingly, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'll try to find it, and then next time I see you, I'll shoot you the link. But it's it's not a big channel, but they go pretty in depth into the features. So if I can find that again, I found it through the subreddit on video editing. If you're on Reddit at all,
no, especially like whenever I'm writing because I'm trying to get this thing done. 20 chapters.
Gotcha.
I should try Reddit out.
I'll try to look for it real quick before you get off, just in case I can find it in time, but I doubt it. So
okay, I mean I'll still be in chat. I'm just gonna get off in like 3 minutes because like I'm just taking a break. But so I guess back to conspiracies. Is there actually a conspiracy that you think sort of has like some sort of merit? Like whenever I hear about like let's say the Banana Republic overthrow, which is like a sort of like a conspiracy theory that I think was proven true over the long run.
it's true, yes.
Yeah, so but I'm wondering like, I always think that like some of these explanations for conspiracy theories just go into like the supernatural. Like when some of the conspiracies are the most mundane shit I ever heard in my entire life.
Well, I mean,
and a lot of politicking behind the scenes.
Obvious true conspiracies would be like the libel scandal, Panama Papers. Chelsea
Watergate.
Manning, Edward Snowden,
Watergate.
and stuff like that.
That's what I was saying at the beginning. There are actual conspiracies. It's just they're almost never to the degree and to the scale that people, I think, warrant them to. And I think a
100%
lot of
agree.
things are just dumb luck. You know, the people got through at the right time, and also I had another card. This will segue us away from the moon landing. Is I think a lot of times when people are in shitty situations, it's almost, and kind of almost going back to anthropomorphize, I think it's a lot more comforting to think that not only is it not because of you and not because of the bad situation, but that there's actually people working against. There is, you are the underdog, or we, you know, whoever you want to put, and there is really someone out there trying. And if we could just get rid of
There's
that,
a power to that. There's a power to that, because if that's true, you're able to fight against it. You're able to control that. You're able to like get your AR-15, get your, like workout, do all this thing. You're able to fight against the force that's against you. But if that's not true, it's actually very scary, because you're not able to fight against.
then there's nothing you can do, or
There's
you
nothing you can do. Yeah.
can mitigate
So
it.
people want to be able to do something. They want to be in control. I think that's the psychology of human beings. Human beings are scared of not being in control.
I agree. I think that's where a lot of has to come from.
I mean, not a conspiracy, but it does delve a little bit into consciousness. That I feel like, since we have the ability to self-reflect so much, that our, I guess you could say, attunement to these explanations that seem extraordinary is, I guess you could say, higher. Because, like, I'll say a lot of things about my dogs. They're kind of stupid, but I don't think that they believe that 9/11 was fake.
Well, I don't think that they introspect, and so I don't think they probably can to some degree, but not a lot. Do they think about the data? So we seem to be in that mode almost as one of our main modes, as we are always thinking about data. We're thinking about thinking about things that happen. You could be pining over an event that happened 10 years ago, and that probably doesn't happen with a dog. Probably.
Definitely. Yeah, I actually agree with that. I'm gonna go back to chat. Nice talking to all of you.
Nice talking to you as always. I hope you have a good night.
I'll try to. You too.
Bye, Nicol.
So yeah, I only have like one or two more. I'll start with the first two. I'm gonna tie together, and then the third gets tied with them anyway. So
Amy already knows my guilty pleasure as far as that goes.
oh,
As
Ray,
far
you
as
know what?
conspiracy.
I tried to keep away from your guilty pleasure because
you did?
your one subject, because I didn't know if you. I feel like that should be up to you to
Bring it up, yeah.
yeah, stuff like that. So instead, and you can after this. My thing I was gonna say, New World Order and Illuminati. I'm kind of tying them together because I think they kind of go hand in hand. But the general one world government. There is a cabal out there. There are people voting on, pull the things behind the scene behind the scene. How does everyone feel?
This one in particular you see tied with Christianity, and I think it stems from a desire for people, typically Christians, to want to make it like their faith is real. It's really affecting the world. These things are actually real. They're actually happening. It's not just old fables written in a book. It's real life. So they're reading into worldwide events, but every generation does it for 2,000 years. They all think that they're, the generation written of in the Bible, but they're just trying to convince themselves that things that they know they don't have good reason to believe are true.
In terms of conspiracy theory, I think it's equivalent to God. The New World Order, the Illuminati, it's kind of a metaphor for God in terms of people that want to accept what's happening and who's in control, who's in power. It's just an analogy. The New Old Order, the Illuminati, these are all kind of equivalent, in my opinion, to a god that's controlling everything. So it's kind of an equivocation that conspiracy theorists make in to who's in charge, who's in power, who's in control of their lives.
I mean, if you come at it from the Judeo or the Christian perspective, they actually believe that things written in the book of Revelation are going to happen. They're literal, actual events that are going to happen. Of course, they're not, but they still have to try to fit the puzzle pieces together so they can delude themselves into thinking it is.
Yeah, Revelations is pretty crazy.
It's an acid trip, yeah.
So yeah, I found one more.
Well, I can, Amy, I can go on my take on that if you want.
Oh, absolutely.
New World Order, go ahead.
I'm just
a little side tangent off of what I think James was saying. I think that I don't think it's unquestionable that there are a very small subsect of people that have a wealth of power, right? That the idea of the 1%, as we talked about previously, the Panama Papers from 5 years ago that everyone forgot about. The LIBOR scandal from I think around 2010, 2011, stuff like that. I have no problem believing that there's a small amount of people that make the world's decisions and they only care about themselves. Where I draw the line at is that they then sacrifice babies to Satan at the Bohemian Grove, and only Alex Jones was able to get in there with his VHS recorder to catch them at doing it. I do draw a line there.
Too bad he didn't catch him shape-shifting, right?
Exactly. Yeah, could have brought what's his nuts. I can't remember the lizard man name, but
David Icke.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, David Icke.
Well, you bring up a good point to me. Is sometimes I feel like you get quote unquote so skeptical that your brains fall out. And my view, how do you guys feel about when a conspiracy theory is used the other way? So, for example, people will say global warming's a vast conspiracy, but as far as I can tell, it's just the science. But what do you say when people try and, oh gosh, excuse me, but when they try and turn that around and say, well, you're not being skeptic of the massive global warming conspiracy trying to take us all down or trying to tax us into oblivion?
I'll give a take on that, but I want to let them go first.
Yep. Anybody?
Manifold, do you want to go?
No, James was going. Go for it.
Yeah, go ahead, James.
Well, now keep in mind, I do respect science. I do love science, but I feel like science has, especially maybe over the past 50 to 100 years, but actually further than that, science, the people who do science, they are keenly aware of the current political mood of the nation and the world. And I do see a trend of them trying to make their science politically acceptable. They never really come out with any conclusions or statements that are politically incorrect. For example, 150, 200 years ago, it was scientific consensus that the African race was less intelligent, less capable than the white race. Now that's not politically acceptable, so they don't think that way anymore. But at the time, they did. You have to ask yourself, like, at what point is what they really think, and at what point are they just telling people what they think people want to hear? I don't know.
I think we lost Ogre. Yep.
But
Manifold, did you have anything you wanted to?
I do see a trend of people of science, making sure their findings are politically correct, so they stay funded. They don't really, go out to the controversial issues.
See, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Where I would just push back is where I don't think that global warming is politically. I think that environmentalists can be politically motivated, and you could say, "Oh no, you're fine, Ogre. It was good to have you. I feel bad. I would have given you a closer, but I understand, and it was actually awesome
Oh.
having you on. We need more people
We need more
trying
Ogre.
to, especially with all the flat Earth and all this. We need more geologists. So it was a pleasure to have you on. And I would just say that it's political how much money you spend on the issue, and it's political how fast and how you deal with it. It just shouldn't be political whether it exists or not, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Facts should not be political. So, I mean, I think there was a time when both sides of an issue, like conservatives and liberals and the left and the right, would agree on facts and just disagree on the way they would able to tackle those facts. So I think there was a time that was true. Right now, the problem is that we both sides just don't even disagree on reality. This is a huge problem.
Well, like for instance, just an example of this, we saw, I was reading articles back in maybe May about the coronavirus that said that, because before that they had theorized that asymptomatic transmission was very likely and very high. And then a study came out and said, actually, it's very rare and it basically isn't a real thing. And then the media and the people who want everybody to wear masks, they lost their lunch. And then the science pulled back and said, oh, okay, no, never mind. It's real. Yeah, asymptomatic transmission, it's real. It doesn't seem like it's genuine. They're just trying to make the media and the masses happy.
So Manifold, if you didn't have anything to say, I just have, I think, 2 more subjects, and then we can do, if you want, finishers, and yeah, you go. So, I'll pining off of the New World Order and Illuminati just because I couldn't not. Does anyone feel? I know I have my own views on this whole Jewish connection. Why it's always the Jews?
Okay, why do you think in terms of the Illuminati or the New World Order that one world government? A lot of people think that is the Jews. Why do you think people make that connection? Even though, sure, there could be one world government, but why are the Jews so integral to a lot of these conspiracy theories? Please, I want to hear your theory. Go for it.
If I had to really if I had to, in a simple sentence, it would be they're a white minority. And that's going to sound weird, but to me, it's just like how the Nazis were able to look at the Slavs and be like, yeah, they're a little too white to be white. And it's like, what? And so people look for the breaking point, the thing where it's my tribe and it's your tribe. And I think it's just very easy to go, look, the template is white Christian, and we don't like the Muslims and we don't like the Jews. And so, it's very easy to make scapegoats out of differences.
And often the differences are based on what was created by the culture that end up being prejudice against these people. So in terms of why did Jews become bankers, or why did Jews have certain businesses? Because they were ostracized from other industries. They weren't able to hold a lot of power in the education system. Like, they were discriminated in certain areas of the economy and in the social structure, and they were just forced into certain other industries. And once they became successful in those industries, they became admonished that, all of a sudden, they were blamed for, why are they so dominant in certain industries? Well, because they were banned and admonished from other industries, and this is the only areas they were able to have control over. So certain businesses, that's the only areas they were able to be a part of that society, and they were blamed for that. So the cause and effect, right? The whole conspiracy theory that there's a conspiracy theory that, the Jews actually tried to be dominant in certain areas. No, this is just a cause and effect. There's no conspiracy theories. Literally pinballs and dominoes falling one against each other.
Well, it's also culture. Like, because I think I asked myself, the Jews go into media that they say, and I really want to go into. I come from a Jewish background, and I want to go into media, and I really like all this multimedia. Is it like a self-fulfilling prophecy? I don't think that there's like a Jewish cabal behind the scenes being like, go into media, push race mix,
And
all
what they
these
were into
things.
media originally, it wasn't and it wasn't the profitable thing that is like it's post facto justification.
Yeah.
Because media is so profitable nowadays. It means that people 300 years ago that were into media had this long-term plan that would be so successful nowadays. No, like, the people that were in that industry nowadays were seen as like lower class. Like, the lowest class people were people that were in theater, the arts, all these artistic endeavors were really low class people. It's not the way we perceive these artists nowadays.
Exactly. It seems like almost stereotypes run amok, because like I try and tell people, my brother is a Jewish cop, a Trump supporting cop. My parents are both in their 70s and still working. So if the Jews own the world, it's just, they both owe my family shekels, and it seems like they're more diverse and not a monolith than they would have people think. I just can't see where the hive mind comes from. You know what I mean? Like, the hive, it goes back to, once again, sinister intent. Like, there would have to be a sinister intent to really get people in, and yeah.
Well, I would say what part of it was is that originally the Catholic Church, which controlled Europe, they banned the loaning of money with interest. It was called usury. So Christians were prevented from doing that. So if you wanted to borrow money, someone has very little incentive to loan you a lot of money if they're not making any interest on it. So credit markets were considerably tight back then, but the Jews, they were not limited by the Catholic Church's ruling on that. So they were allowed to then loan for money. So those are who the wealthy and the royalty, they would actually go to for money, because they would actually be willing to give them a large loan because they can charge, an interest rate on it.
So it's circumstantial. It's events happening.
History, circumstance, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. That's exactly where the conspiracy theories come from. Like, Dick Cheney benefited from the Iraq War, from Halliburton, and all this thing. But, doesn't mean that Dick Cheney actually, caused 9/11 to purposely get into the war. So this is where we go back to the conspiracy theory aspect. Like, doesn't mean that someone like that benefited from the situation because they were part of the system they were involved in, that they actually caused these situations like 9/11 or like
Like,
certain
yeah.
cause and effect situation that benefited. So no, like I that's where the conspiracy theories break down, in my opinion.
So the Jews, they weren't telling the Pope, hey, ban Christians from loaning money on interest. That way we can corner the market. That just happened on its own, you know?
Yep. And so I guess it made me think of a new one just because I have one that I want to end on, but that made me think, do you guys have any thoughts on any like World War II conspiracies? Or, there are people that will tell you that Hitler, actually escaped and went to South America and stuff like that.
Oh, I think that's very unlikely. Very, very unlikely.
No.
I think the mainstream consensus is definitely where it's at.
You know who hate, so yes, the Russians were the first to go into Berlin and were able to verify that Hitler was dead. So there's a conspiracy theory that Hitler's still alive because the Russians, we didn't verify it. The Russians were in there first and they messed with all this evidence. But you know who fucking hated Hitler
Yeah,
more
they
than
hated
America?
exactly.
The Russians. The Russians hated Hitler more than fucking America. Like, Hitler was a fucking massacre. Like, he
'Cause he invaded
He
Russia.
killed so many fucking Russians.
He
Did
turned
not
on them.
like Hitler.
Yeah.
So the fact that they verified that Hitler was dead, there was no nation more interested in Hitler being dead than Russia at that time. So there's no way. Like, if it was if Hitler was still alive, Russia would still be on the case.
Well, I mean,
He'd want him dead.
you could also say then, well, maybe, just to play devil's advocate, well, then maybe Russia didn't want anybody to think to know that they let Hitler get away, so they would just claim he's dead, but have the KGB still looking for him. I don't think that's what happened. I'm just, thinking like a conspiracy theorist.
Hey. Okay.
Yeah,
I
go
found
down the
that
rabbit
funny.
hole. Once you're red pilled, Amy, because I know you love that so much.
Woohoo! Hey, I like the actual use of the term. I use that for good old solipsism. And
But
okay,
it really means putting your brain in a blender and pressing the button and then pouring it back in to your mind.
that's what it feels like sometimes. Well, then, if you guys don't have any others, I just have the classic one. I thought this would be our last night, or our last topic, because I don't even know much about it. Do any of you guys know anything about chemtrails? This is I feel like the classic conspiracy, American old conspiracy.
I mean, it goes in. I think that's tied in a lot with the New World Order and people like that. And then not far from that, you get into the HARP and the mind control and the government trying to control the weather. And I mean, they have all sorts of different theories.
It would be that the government is dropping chemicals in the atmosphere that people are breathing in, it's the classic, like a dystopian, fictional tropes and novels and stories that there's drugs that are controlling, there's big government, the New World Order that's controlling people through drugs, chemistry. So chemtrails are that the government is putting chemicals in the air that people are breathing in to be sedated, to be controlled and mind controlled. In the same way, the vaccine, people don't want to get the COVID vaccine because they're going to be mind controlled. They're it's part of the government wants to control people. Like, it's part of it's a fictional trope that's ongoing, that's still affecting our society nowadays in a really material way.
And it starts with something rather benign, the contrails behind jets, but then people look at it, they don't quite understand how that happens, so they start speculating.
Well, once again, the theme of the night, when you don't know something, it's much easier to fill it in with your own hypothesis.
Say, I bet there's some evil bastard in the government who wants to kill me, and that's why he's spraying poison from the planes.
Yeah, and so that's why people are turning gay.
I mean, one of the many reasons, right? Aside from, I guess, the Jews want people to be gay, right, Amy?
Of the Jews, yeah, exactly. One of the common things is they want. You know what's surprising? I always tell. I've told black people the Jews are pushing the race mixing thing, and they're surprised. They're always like, "Oh, it's them, really? They're the ones pushing race mixing. It wasn't because they like the white people were attracted to us." Okay. Hey, conspiracy theories. What can I tell you? And so, yeah. So with that, I'm going to ask. Oh, that's so funny. Sam's coming back in. Hold on one second. That's good, though. I'll let Sam have a wrap up. Let's see. Hey, Sam, are you back? Can you hear us?
Yes.
We're actually about to wrap up because we're almost on hour 2, but that's okay. This gives you a chance to. We're all going to do some enders, and we can start with you. Did you have any? Did you have any thoughts? We were just talking about the Illuminati, New World Order, Jews, chemtrails, Hitler, lots of fun stuff. Do you have any thoughts?
So the only thing I really think, first of all, can you hear me?
We can hear you. You're coming in.
The only thing I really think about is the difference between conspiracies. The ones that are blamed on people behind the scenes conspiring against you or your demographic, and the ones where no one is really at fault. They just insist it's right. You know, for like, flat Earth, the moon, dinosaurs. Like, there's evidence proving wrong otherwise, but they just insist it's right. Tying back into today's culture of just flat out ignoring science because it's a popular thing to do now. Versus a conspiracy where someone thinks somebody's behind it. For instance, just saying aliens are real and trying to prove aliens exist sounds like myth hunting. But saying a conspiracy saying aliens.
Did we lose her?
She got beamed up. They got her.
There you go. As soon as she started talking about aliens, they cut her off.
That's okay. So I'm going to give maybe another second. And if not, we're going to go to Manifold and James, either one of you guys. And we'll wait. If she's able to come back, we'll come back to her. So that's okay. So...
are planning to do this and that and attack us.
Is she back?
I think she's back. Are you back? We're here. We see your feet again.
So what was the last thing you heard me say?
They were being menacing. People were being menacing to us, I think.
She was saying about aliens. You could just say they exist.
Oh, aliens.
And then,
yeah. Aliens.
Saying they exist is myth hunting to me, but it's still a conspiracy. And trying to prove that, and then saying that they're planning this action against us. They're.
Well,
I feel bad.
I'll just say until she gets back that the alien thing is my guilty pleasure. I do indulge in that theory.
Or they abduct us.
Sam, if you hear this, just chill for 1 second. What were you saying, James?
Oh, I was going to say, I don't really get too into the details of it. I mean, get really specific. I mean, I do have a few basic beliefs about aliens and what's happening, but when you try to go too deep into it, you're really, it depends on who you trust, and you've got different sources, and you don't really have good ways of verifying information. So, once you get too far down the rabbit hole, it's kind of hard to know if you're on the right track or not.
And I'm interested in the subject. I'd say it's something I care about deeply. I would even put money, invest in SETI. I want to give NASA more money. And I wouldn't say they're impossible. I'm skeptical, but they're not impossible. More plausible than a god, right?
More plausible than a god, yeah. And it's nothing that requires any great leap of logic or whatnot.
Aliens are likely, but it's not likely that we have communicated with them yet. That's the problem. I think that in terms of the conspiracy that there's a cover-up, I think the first people that are going to detect aliens are amateur astronomers or scientists that are not really motivated by money, right? Like scientists don't become scientists because they want to become millionaires and billionaires. So a lot of these people don't like try to keep secrets. They're not motivated by money. The average scientist is going to blow the fucking whistle immediately as soon as there's a massive discovery like aliens or communication. That will be a thing. I think that's the least likely conspiracy theory that will ever happen. I think as soon as aliens are able to be confirmed by communication, by signal, by anything like that, it's going to be immediately known. And I don't think there's any reason or any purpose to that thing to even be a conspiracy theory.
Well, my thing with that is that even if they did try and hide it, I think they would hide it poorly. So I think after even giving a decade is very generous to how much, because that is another beef I have with conspiracy theories, is they almost always assume that the people doing the conspiracy are both geniuses and idiots at the same time. Like they are able to pull off breathtaking feats of deception, but they are terrible at covering up their tracks, except for Bob. Bob found it. Bob was able to catch on.
Go ahead.
Yeah, like if there was ever if there was ever a contact, like an alien kind of contact, like we recognize like who'd be involved, right? Like as soon as the Challenger exploded, who got involved? Richard Feynman was, asked to like please investigate this because he was the number one scientist like in America, and he was tasked to like please investigate what caused the Challenger to explode. So if there was ever an alien contact, who'd be the people to be involved? The best scientists in America, like Steven Weinberg, fucking Noam Chomsky, like all these top scientists would be the first people to try to be, like please come help us deal with this new thing that happened, like an alien signal or something. So these people would not be keeping conspiracy theories would need to be kept by fucking some idiot like military, but no, the people that would be first exposed to these things would be the best scientists in our country, and they would not keep a secret, in my opinion.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you could say then maybe that's why they're not making much progress with them, because they don't want to bring the best scientists into it, because they only bring the scientists into it who they know can be controlled. Now, that's speculation. You have to assume a lot of agency and bad intent on that part, but yeah.
But they have in the past, right? Like when they wanted to build a nuclear weapon, they brought in the best scientists, like Richard Oppenheimer, Richard Feynman, like all these scientists that built our, the Manhattan Project. It was, the best scientists involved. Like when we want to get to the moon, as the best scientists involved. Like we need Operation Paperclip to bring in all the the best scientists from Germany after World War II. We want to come on board because we want to get them to the people that investigated the Challenger were the best scientists in our. So I think I don't believe in that conspiracy theory, because in terms of what we have in the past is that we have appealed to our best people. So there's no reason to believe that we wouldn't be doing that in the future.
Yeah, I think it's something that the only thing people are really going to accept is the smoking gun. That unless it's clear and evident, I don't think most people are going to really, people will deny till the end, and then when it's undeniable, people will come over. But it's a hard thing for most people to come to.
The other thing with aliens is that it's assuming that they are friendly enough to like contact the government and be like, okay, we'll keep things silent, and not like, okay, we have spaceships and we're surrounding the planet, and we don't really care about your press or how your governments take it. I mean, it could go lots and lots of different ways, but that's assuming like they were friendly and decided to work with the government to conceal us.
Well, assuming that, and they didn't want to cause chaos or destruction on Earth,
Yeah, exactly. How you doing, Sam?
I just gave up on the laptop. I thought I found the problem, but it was just something.
No, we've been dealing with it all night. I'm sympathetic. The Wi-Fi can be a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're coming up because I feel like unless anyone has any other conspiracy theories, because I've been just trying to go down a fun list, we can start to wrap up. Did anyone have any closing thoughts?
So what do you think we've accomplished so far? Like, have we helped each other come to a new conclusion?
Well, I think we're really just trying to grapple, because I think it's easy to make fun of conspiracy theorists. I think, as skeptic, and even the media, I think the media, they almost do themselves a disservice because it's easy to shit on conspiracy theorists. But at the same time, I'm sympathetic, because just like all these terms that people are creating, woke and red-pilled, what they're all trying to say is we want to know the truth. And so I'm sympathetic to that notion. Where it all goes wrong is the uncomfortability with saying, I don't know. Is that, there is a lot. Sometimes there's going to be more that we don't know than we do know. And at that point, you just have to be comfortable in not only not knowing, but then continually searching for the actual answer.
I would say it also ties into people tend to be very obstinate. People tend to be unwilling to change their views. As they're presented with evidence, they just kind of rework their beliefs around it. So, that's why we see, even though their claims are being debunked over and over again, they just slightly modify the claims to work around that debunking. So, their beliefs are protected.
Amy mentioned it earlier before in the night, confirmation bias. They just find new pieces of evidence to support their claims.
Yeah, the claims stay roughly the same. It's just the justification for it that changes.
A different means for their end.
And yeah, I think that about does it. Manifold, did you want to have a closer?
No, I really appreciate you having me on. I really love being in this chat. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
It was an interesting chat. Thank you, Manifold.
James, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
Not really. It was an interesting conversation, trying to work out the find out what makes these theories work and what makes the people that believe in them tick. And it's very interesting. And yeah.
All right. And Sam, did you want to have any sort of a finishing statement?
I just think we helped fill in the blanks for each other. Looking at it from different perspectives. I try to find the root of the problem, the root of each conspiracy, whereas someone else like, no, let's head at it from the back forward. Just debunk them right then and there. Different methods. I like to see other people's point of view. Yeah, pretty much.
All right, awesome. And with that, I'm going to bring us into our conclusion. I want to thank everyone for watching this episode of Skeptic and Ranting. I hope you guys had a fun time going down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories. And I look forward to having many more adventures with you guys.
Happy 2021, everybody.
Yes, happy 21 and good night, everyone.
Another half hour to go.
Good night.
Woo! Yeah, happy 2021.
Good night, guys.
And if you liked what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe.